to all the girlies listening, if there is one thing I can say that I hope you take forward the rest of your life, is your title is what you rent. Your talent is what you own.
Hi, y'all. My name is Denasia, and I'm a 22-year-old Type A Black girl from Las Vegas who just moved to New York City last year to work for L'Oreal as a financial analyst.
Hey, y'all. My name is Faith, and I'm a 23-year-old Type A Black girl from AZ, living in Denver, working remotely for Cisco as a business analyst.
This season is finally here, and we can't wait to share more about our personal lives, working big girl jobs,
relationships, and life in general as Type A Black girls. Hope you enjoy.
Hi, guys. Welcome back. You guys know we be filming in advance, so we have no clue exactly when this will come out, but a few housekeeping announcements because you guys know we're going to hammer it home until you're sick of it. Please make sure you guys are subscribing to our YouTube channel. Hopefully you guys are watching this live. Also, make sure you're tapping the link in our link tree. Please submit any suggestions or questions you have to our free suggestion bots. We also have our book club meeting literally tomorrow when we're filming this. It's May 18th. But we will have a new book coming soon. We'll probably be reading Silent Patient, which I love. So please stay tuned with our book club. If you guys are in our group meet, you'll see more updates about that. And yeah, since this is in the future, just keep up to date with our Instagram and our group me, and you'll see all updates that are coming through right there.
Yes.
But you guys probably see a lovely guest sitting with us if you're watching us. So I think we should go ahead and introduce her.
Absolutely. So this is Dr. Dr. Tashan Macon, correct?
Tashan.
Okay, both. I was saying the first and the last in my head wrong. Okay, Tashan Macon, beautiful. She has a PhD and an MBA and is a culturalist and a communication and cachet catalyst behind the highly successful branding of multi-award winning artists such as Usher, Pink, and Dr. Dre. Her visionary strategies have catapulted awareness for iconic brands, including the USOC Winter Olympics, Burger King, the World Cup, and the Oprah Winfrey Show. That's what I'm talking about. She specializes in moving others to see where culture and the consumer are headed. Both have tremendous implications on for-profit and for-purpose businesses and the sacred collision of the two.
As a best-selling author, celebrated speaker, and member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, I know that's right, Sor, Dr. Tashan is committed to advancing success, agency, ascension, one born of experience, weeped in wit and wisdom.
Beautiful. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, we're so excited to have you.
We're so excited to have you on.
Be here. Thank you so very much for having me.
Absolutely.
We're ready to learn from you because, listen, when we saw your accolades, we were like, yes, this is going to we're very much getting our notepads out because we know you have a lot of wisdom to tell us. But before we get into that, we are going to go to our Rosebud and Thorn. I know you guys haven't heard this in a minute. Since we haven't really done Rosebud and Thorns in the studio. But if you guys are new here, your rose is something good that happened during your week. Your bud is something you're looking forward to next week. And your thorn is what something terrible happened during your week or something you didn't like. So, Dr. Macon, if you could share your RBT with us.
Sure. My rose is today, being with you both today. That's very exciting to me and the community, the beautiful, glorious community you've created. So that's my rose. My bud is next week. I'm going to be in Chicago and Minneapolis in partnership with Black female leaders in philanthropy.
Period.
Having conversations around what it means to be Black voices in spaces and places that may have a little bit of a challenge recognizing our brilliance and our blaze, but what we can do about that. So that's my bud. My thorn this week, as I think, let me think about it. We've had a couple of projects that were delayed, and I think I'm very good with grace until I think it's like being completely misrepresented. So this week I had to kind of recalibrate a project and reestablish the boundaries beyond the grace. So that was my thorn this week. And so I take that as a lesson and moving forward, I'm excited about it.
For sure. That was really eloquently put. That was very, very, very eloquently put. But we're so excited to have you on. Dr. Macon reached out to us, and we were like, okay, like, she has a book coming out. She has all these accolades. So I definitely wanted to shout out your book. And I was just even looking at the chapter titles, and it was just beautiful. I felt very seen. But her book is Coming in Hot, a blueprint for Black women setting the world ablaze. And we're kind of be asking questions about her life in corporate and what she's done in all of her years, and what the book really has to teach Black women to set the world ablaze, and really being in corporate long term. So, moms, do you want to start out with the first question?
Yeah, so we, based on like the chapters going on in your book and also what we know about you, we thought we can kind of go down these questions in categories. So, starting off with like motivation related questions, can you tell us what inspired you to write your book, and kind of how this whole story came about?
Sure. So the book was motivated by watching what was happening in the pandemic. There was a lot of language around African American women leaving the career space, and I was being asked to speak about that topic, and they were calling it the Great Resignation.
Mm,
And I remember having a sense, no, this isn't a resignation. This is a great recalibration. We're getting crystal clear around our value in these places and spaces. And you think about at that time, it had been like a trifecta of trauma had hit our nation, right? We had Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, and there was this huge dedication and conversation around what was going to be pledged to deal with systemic challenges related to the lifestyle of a Black person, period.
mm,
And what I noticed is that between the pandemic and that trifecta of trauma, Black women were just exiting these spaces. And they were exiting them because it's difficult to be in a space where you're not seen, and to know that you are the most degreed and the least paid. There was a lot of
Mm,
mm,
documentation coming out also around the fact that over the career arc of a Black woman, she will lose $2 million, over $2 million. And so for me, it was okay, well, she's $1 million mind. She she is not making the million she's worth. Some kind of way, we need to start having a conversation and a discussion and a plan of action that ignites the current generation of women and the future generation of women. And that's what motivated the book.
oh,
Oh, I
that
love that.
I love,
I
love
love
that.
that. Yeah.
Yeah,
This
it's
might
a
be,
great start.
listen, the girls in our book club, write this down. We about to read this book.
No, no, for real. Um, so can you share a bit about your personal journey and how it kind of influenced the content of your book?
Absolutely. So I started off my career at LaFace Records. And so LaFace Records was a very young company at the time that I started. And the beauty of that opportunity was that I worked with Babyface and L.A. Reid, and they were two men, African American men, who believed in the brilliance of getting, using your full self, your full mind to do great work. So because I can, and I also started at a time when most people thought hip hop would never be a sustainable genre. So you
Mm,
could look at that
mm,
like a challenger brand, right? So LaFace was a challenger brand, and we were ushering in what we call the rhythm of Black lifestyle. So in that environment, I was able to be fully and utterly creative. Loved it. Loved the people I got to work with. As hip hop, or the genre of R&B, hip hop, neo soul, whatever it was being named at that time, as it began to get mainstream appeal, then the dominant perspective, the corporations started inviting this knowledge into their spaces. Now, what became interesting is that the more we moved into corporate spaces, it was only temporarily that our knowledge was experienced as excellence. After that, it
mm,
became an extractionist economy. So once you've extracted the knowledge from our experience, then we were kind of shelved. And
mm,
that's why you started seeing a lot of layoffs. You started seeing a lot of highly professional people in the entertainment industry not having jobs, trying to figure out how to navigate and parlay that experience. I happen to be mentored by some great women. And so I started pivoting into working in the agency world. And the agency world was still embracing creativity, how to integrate entertainment with brands and products. And so then you started seeing brand integration, brand placement. Now, what was interesting, honestly, is that when you think about television and think of something like soap operas, brands were always funding storytelling, funding entertainment. So I was able to parlay my experience working with LaFace and Dr. Dre, who also hired me from LaFace. Brilliant man, brilliant mind, really encouraged me to take agency of my skills. So if I had something that I wanted to do, I wanted to present to him, he was very open to hearing it. He
Wow.
intentionally hired all women. My boss's name was Curtis Tucker. And Curtis, and I also worked with a woman named Vivian. And so he hand selected this, what we would call Dre's Angels, like Charlie's Angels. And we could just bring ideas to him. He would review them, receive them. If they worked, he would try them. And so that created an affirmation about how to take agency of our talent.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I feel like working in like especially like in rap and hip hop, I feel like it's a predominantly male industry. So I was gonna ask, like, what was that like? Because it sounds like Dr. Dre was not really with the whole misogyny thing of making sure women can't be in important rooms, but like, how was that with other artists that you work with? Did they have that same mindset?
Yeah, I think I was privileged in that way, honestly. Denasia, I was privileged in this and Faith. I was privileged that the gentlemen that I worked for were adamant about creating a culture of black female excellence, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know a time at that time where most of the businesses were not over indexing as black women. So if I can just come straight up the middle, most companies in this nation build their businesses on the brains, the brilliance, and the backs of black women.
Mm-hmm.
That's a full stop.
Yeah.
Whether it's a small business, a medium-sized business, or if you even have your own business and you are working as a sub-agency partner with another organization, oftentimes the brilliance of black women, the dedication of her work level. And we're seeing, when I say the backs and the brains and the brilliance of black women, I'm not trying to speak of that in terms of simply what I call the helium. I'm saying there are risks to her health. This is how we're working. We're working long hours. We're sacrificing our health. We're sacrificing even having children, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're not making time for the fullness of our life. And I just happened to work with men at that time that were very adamant around creating safe spaces. Now, everyone may not have had that experience, but that was my experience. And I also was very discerning. When the energy of the room shifted, I shifted too. So
Mm-hmm.
I didn't stay in spaces that I didn't feel safe. If the conversation was moving in a direction that didn't align with who I am or what I'm about, I would exit stage left. So I didn't keep myself in those spaces or in those conversations if they didn't align with my core.
Yeah, not a lot of people can say that, especially because of job security or health benefits, the whole nine. But for you, you said a lot of great things about being in this industry. What are some, if you did face them, what are some of the challenges you faced working your way up in this world?
I would say the sacrifice of my time. I worked very long. I truthfully was a workaholic. Yeah.
Mm,
Um, I would say that coming into it when you're, and I say this in the book, when you come from the generation in our cultural context that you have to work twice as hard to get half as far, you
mm-hmm.
actually are working twice as hard, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so working 14, 16, 20 hours a day to get it done over long periods of time, it's not a sustainable way to live. Um, and also being on all the time. That's something I had to work on. I had to work on knowing how to unplug so that my personal self got the same amount of attention, intention, and shine as my professional self.
Yeah.
And
Ooh.
that was a love letter I had to give to myself.
How did you draw that boundary? Because everything you're saying, it's like you're reading me like a book. So like, how did you even do that? How, like, what steps did you take? Because it's like when you're in your career, you want to do the best, especially as type A Black girls. Like you want to perform and do what you set your mind to. But like, how did you even prioritize your personal self?
The way I began to prioritize my personal self, it was steps, honestly, Janasia. I would start being intentional about meditation, right? I would say to myself, listen, Tashan, you may not do this 7 days a week, but you have to find time to do this for 15 minutes because you matter. And I'm going to see how much you matter to yourself by your commitment to this one thing. And so that then grew meditation, 15 minutes. Then I started ensuring once a month I did some kind of staycation, whether I went to the spa for the whole day, whether, being in California, you all are from the West Coast and also on the East Coast, there are places you can pop to within an hour, right? There's a way you can get, if you're in New York, you can get on the bus and be in the Hamptons for the day. You don't have to stay all night. You can just take the bus up, walk around in the Hamptons, eat lunch in the Hamptons, gift yourself the gift of yourself. And I started saying that to myself, Tashan, gift yourself the gift of yourself. So in Los Angeles, I would drive to Santa Barbara. I would just go up to Santa Barbara to have Mexican food and margaritas with
Oh,
myself,
my
right?
dream. Like,
Right. So I would do that for myself. And I started saying to myself, if you can't sit with yourself, your personal self, who can sit with you? Take up company and take up space with yourself. And I started calling it my sacred self time. And then it was my sacred self Saturdays. And then it was my sacred self every 2 weeks. Then it was a month. And so I started building upon that. And I made my personal commitment to myself as important as my professional commitment to myself. And I did it over time.
Yeah. How long do you think it took you to get this? Because I know some of our girlies may be 18, maybe 14, maybe 27. And it's like, okay, well, I want to get there. How long realistically did it take you to get to that point to be like, yeah, I'm treating myself because I work hard and I'm setting these boundaries?
Okay, I can definitely tell you I didn't have it at 14. I didn't have it at 18. Did not have it then. Um, I would say I started seeing it around, I started it at about 29, 30,
Okay.
and I saw the full kind of embrace around 32.
Okay.
okay.
It wasn't, and that's another thing. I think as Black women, we're just, we go hard. We go all the way in, right? If we're gonna do it, we're gonna jump straight into the deep end of the pool. And I
Yeah.
think sometimes it's a benefit if we wade in the water a bit. Just move at a pace that embraces your full self. You know,
Yeah.
not to take it on all the time as a challenge, but to embrace it as a consideration and compassion for yourself.
Mm. Yeah.
Wade in the water.
In the water.
Which
Yes.
is very hard at times because you just want to go, go, go. And like in my head, I was like, oh yeah, like I could do that. That's a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
No, you like it like that. I was like, oh, she's reading me down. Okay.
No, literally, this is like, yeah, like you're reading us down, yeah, for real. Also, so like you mentioned a lot of these like tactics that you used in the workplace. What are some really practical strategies you had to really advance your career that you think we can share with all the girlies that are listening?
Absolutely. To all the girlies listening, if there is one thing I can say that I hope you take forward the rest of your life, is your title is what you rent. Your talent is what you own.
Mm. To
Your title can be expanded, elevated, or erased.
mm.
Your talent cannot.
Wow.
So we have come up in a generation of professional Black women, particularly over the last, I'd say 20, 30, 40 years, that the title was the thing people were after, right? Because the way the corporate structure is set up, the only way you get a promotion is through they may give you money or they may give you a title increase. And so the title becomes the thing.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just what you rent. You
Yeah.
rent it for the moment you're in it, right? But your talent is what you own.
Mm.
So it's like an apartment. When the title doesn't fit you, move out. Take your talent where
Yeah.
you can take up residence, right?
Mm.
And understand the difference between going into these spaces and the distinction between visitation and habitation. Some places you're going to visit for a while. They're not meant to be a 10-year arc in your career. They're meant to be a visitation. I'm going to do this for 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm going to take this talent of mine to another dimension or another experience.
Mm.
And that's how I moved up.
Wow.
Yeah. No, everything you're saying literally is hitting home because one of my mentors recently, like she's been at her company for like 20 years, 25 years, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And they recently gave her an offer to go to a different office and still be in the company, but take a different role. And she's at a VP level. They tried to give her an assistant VP level, like a downgrade
Mm-hmm.
after 25 years. And she was like, I've been at this company for how long? And you want me to take a step down? And then what, work really hard so I can get my VP status back? She was
Right.
like, yeah, like this title means nothing to me. I'll leave the company. And she's leaving her company because
Yeah.
she's like, I can take my talents somewhere else where like they can actually appreciate them, because that's a slap in the face. Like she's renting that title. They're not really giving it to her the way it should be
Right.
handed to her, honestly.
And kudos to her. Like, I celebrate that sister wherever she is. Tell your mentor I am about her life. I love that. Because I think that what you're saying is true. Like, the structure owns the title. It
Yeah.
doesn't own your talent. You're lending it. You're lending your talent, leasing your talent to that title for the period of time that it's permitted.
Yep.
Once it's no longer permitted, you then have to negotiate for yourself, right? Around, if I can't be who I am where I am, then I'll change where I am before I
Not
change
who
who
I
I am.
am.
Mm.
Ooh.
Points
Yep.
were made.
Listen.
Too.
Yeah, that's exactly what my mentor said. She was like, obviously, y'all don't value me. And the company was like, you would really leave? And she was like, yeah, I'm putting in my 2 weeks now because, like, why would I be at a company that doesn't value me for what I'm really
Yeah.
worth?
Truly
And
and truly.
and she represents agency. Like, that's one, I think that we have more access than we've ever maybe had in career spaces, but we're not necessarily taking up agency of our experience. Like, the song Take Up Spaces, right? It's like, take up agency. Like,
Yeah.
own the space you're in. First within yourself, which is what your mentor did. No, she's like, I'm crystal clear about who I am.
Yep.
And I've been here over 20 years. So I've already earned the thing you want to now erase. That's a
Yeah.
non-negotiable.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah.
You know what? What are your non-negotiables? Like, if you get a new role, or let's say the girlies are getting a new role, what should be their top 3 to 5 non-negotiables? And I know it's interchangeable depending on the role, but based off of your experience.
I think one of your core non-negotiables has to be understanding your exit strategy at the time you enter.
Oh.
We're not spending enough time as professional women. We're excited to enter a role or enter a job and not considering what the exit strategy would be, right?
Mm. Yeah.
So I think that's a core thing, understanding that that's a non-negotiable for me. When
Yeah.
I'm privileged to have my own agency. I've had it for 15 years with my partner Nikita Newell
Wow.
Hall. And what's interesting for us is, even around the clients and partners we have the privilege of serving, strengthening, and supporting, we're really crystal clear around who the messages we want to lift up in the world. And so if we are secure, If someone contacts us about partnering with us and their message doesn't align with a message we want to lift up in the world, we believe we have the power to magnetize more money to us. So we believe we can say, this doesn't work. This message doesn't work for us. It doesn't serve our mission, but we wish you well, right?
Mm.
So I do think you have to have internal alignment. And the other thing is I want women to know, particularly Black women, to know, and young women to know, you can magnetize money to yourself.
Mm.
Right? You can create the life you want, and you do not have to. You will make sacrifices, but you don't have to sacrifice yourself. Those are different things.
Yeah. Mm. Goodness gracious. Hey, those balloons is right on point.
I was about to say, I've never seen the balloons. I don't know where those come from. This is a
Hey, new feature.
Riverside new.
Riverside knew you was really spending some facts for real. That was thank you so much, Dr. Macon. But I wanted to go back to what Denasia had talked about mentorship. How can Black women or type A Black girlies leverage mentorship and sponsorship to support their career growth? Like, what did it look like for you when you were just starting out in your 20s, and how did mentorship and sponsorship help you get to where you're at now?
Oh, that's a great question. And two things. One that I will say is your sponsor may not actually be a Black woman,
Mm.
and it may not even be the same gender, right?
Yep.
So a mentor is a person who is with me. A sponsor is a person who's in rooms I'm not in.
Yep.
They're speaking my name in spaces I'm not in.
Mm.
So for me, phenomenal. Always have phenomenal um, Black female mentors. When the sponsorship time came in my life, ironically, I was invited into it by virtue of being asked to go to lunch. The first person was a Caucasian woman that I was shocked that she invited me to lunch. And she's like, "No, I want you to come to lunch. I've been seeing the kind of work you're doing, and I just want to talk to you a little bit." And I went to lunch with her. And she began to talk about my work in rooms that I wasn't in.
Mm.
And I started getting opportunities to do stretch assignments and do other projects. And maybe someone would say, and at this point, I'm in Los Angeles. I'm working at NBC. I'm working at Warner Brothers. You see what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
I'm no longer in the enclave of Black excellence. I've moved into dominant corporate spaces where there's a lot of uh, European people and a lot of otherness. And I was kind of
Yeah.
other too, right? But at any rate, very, very encouraging. And would always say, "Did you consider Tashan? Tashan could do that.
Wow.
That's a stretch project she could take." Right now, once you get a job interview and you go through the resume and they do the background check, people forget you have an MBA. That's not what they forget. So
Mm.
they don't even think about theoretically what you've studied unless you're able to practice what you've studied, because theory without practical application is fruitless. So you do have to have the opportunities to tactically apply the theory that you've learned, right? And
Yeah.
so I was very appreciative of, there would be times when I was meeting, there may be a meeting with accounting, and she would say, "Come into the room. And now tell me what you see about this model, this financial model," right? And I could talk about it and break it down. But here's the distinction. What I learned, what she shared with me, is you will never run a department or a division if you do not understand the bottom line. If you
Mm.
do not know how
Good.
money moves, if you do not understand how to build financial models, even if you get the job, you'll be dependent on accounting without understanding, right? So this sponsor brought me into a lot of rooms, and I would go back to talk to my mentors and they would teach me how to navigate that space as a Black woman. But
Yeah.
she was opening up the space. And then the next person was a man, a white man.
Yep.
And I met him in Seattle, Washington, and was a huge cheerleader a champion is a better word. He was a champion of my work, but he also challenged me to stretch and do bigger things. And he would just continue to increase the budget I was responsible for, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if I was responsible for a $10 million budget, Brett would come back and say, well, yeah, I just gave you this other project and it's $5 million more. And it wasn't just about the increase of the money. It was I had to manage the money and I had to manage the people. Then he would say, okay, yeah, you got to build an agency team. And I'm at this time, I'm working specifically in a telecommunication, T-Mobile. I'm working with a company in Mike Belcher. It was two of them. They would say, okay, now build out the agency team. Now oversee the contract for the agency, facilitate the entire RFP process. These were sponsors. They would put me in spaces so that I could learn things, and they would speak about me in spaces that I wasn't in.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would say for any what I call you guys the emerging leaders. You're emerging. You are going. Listen. When I read your bios, I was like, "There's hope.
Aww.
We're gonna be all right. We're gonna be all right out here, right?" And
Yeah.
so I'm excited about your leadership. I'm excited about how you stepped into the agency of your own careers, what you're doing in your professional life, what you're doing with this podcast, how you're elevating all Black women, the next generation of Black women, teenage Black young ladies who may be entrepreneurs or executives, right? And
Yeah.
so I think even as an executive or an entrepreneur, as an entrepreneur now, I have clients and partners who talk about me in rooms that I'm not in.
Mm.
In all humility, Nikita and I, every client we have ever received in the last 15 years has been a referral.
Wow.
Whoa. That's amazing.
Where are
Get them
those balloons again?
balloons. Let's get the
Yeah.
balloons. Yeah. That is wow.
Wow.
And that's
Wow.
that's intentionality around relationship building.
Yeah.
Being who you say you are, doing what you say you're going to do, and being able to communicate when you run into competing priorities, right? And you may have to pivot. But
Mm-hmm.
you all, you're just dynamic, and I'm excited about the future because you're so dynamic. And I'm excited about the generation of women that you are unleashing and unearthing because of your podcast. I'm telling you, today was my rose. Like, I'm like, oh, it's full bloom. It's exciting.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Oh, I love that. Wow. Everything you're saying is hitting literally right on the nail.
Right on the nail. Like, it's crazy. It really is crazy. But points were made when you said your sponsor might not be a Black woman because mine is a white man.
Yes.
Yeah.
And mine is an Asian man. And I would have never thought. I was like, okay, I need to find who in the company is a Black woman that does the exact same thing as me. And I found sponsors in like places I didn't even expect. And I didn't even realize they were rooting for me. And they're like, oh, by the way, I mentioned you for this. And it's like, oh, I didn't even know you were paying attention to me. Or even like looking at the work I'm doing.
Because, I say all the time, I am privileged to have friends of every ethnicity. And I will say what connects us is our essence. It's essence over ethnicity. You may meet the essence of yourself in someone who's Asian American, or the essence of yourself in a person that's Latin American, or your professional essence in a man, a white man, or an Asian man, right? But your sponsor may not be a Black woman. And traditionally, unfortunately, we're degreed and denied, and we are in these golden cubicles. These, went from the golden handcuffs to the golden cubicles. So we are stuck in cubicles and not getting to the C-suite. But the mentorship does help you navigate. We have less than 2 to 3% of Black women in C-suites. So where are they all? We're stuck right here, right?
In the middle.
In the middle.
Wow.
Oh my gosh. And I guess like on that point too, like we talk about like being a Black woman in predominantly white spaces. How do you deal with like microaggressions or just these things that we go through daily that might not be like explicit racism, but they make your day at work uncomfortable?
Oh, absolutely. So I talk about that in the book, and I talk about the weapon of peace. right? And I talk about, and I'm a person that I will put something, I say put it on the wall, right? I will put a declaration on my wall, on my computer. And I remember going through a period of time where there was a flux between a macroaggression and a microaggression. And I remember saying to myself, Tashan, you do not fight fire with wind, you fight it with water.
Mm.
Mm.
And I wrote it down because I could have fanned that fire
Yeah.
because it was quite, and I would have been righteous in doing it. So let's be clear, I wouldn't have been wrong. But because I knew what I was in that space for, right? That's how you enter understanding your exit strategy as well. I knew I wasn't going to be in that space for 8 or 4 years. I had a finite amount of time to get what I was coming to get, for it to show up on my resume the way I wanted it to show up. And so therefore, Tashan, fight this fire with water. Get what you need to get and get going.
Mm.
And for me, that's how I navigated it. I do. And again, I'm not saying we would not be righteous in it. If it's an environment where you are being completely and utterly violated, you must open your mouth. That is a fact.
Yeah.
When it's about value, um, you get into the space of nebulousness where they believe value is subjective, right? That you're talking about a subject that they can't even necessarily align with. So now you are now placed in a position of defense of a truth that you are experiencing that they believe is made up. You don't have time for that.
Don't.
It is what it is because you know what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And so then the decision is, then you own the space where you decide, okay, is this worth the battle for me based on where I'm going in this experience?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Sometimes
like
it's not worth the battle, to be
it's
honest.
it's
Like,
not.
I know this happened like 8 months ago. At our company, there was like a required like microaggression training and like just training on how to basically treat all employees equally, like discover your hidden biases, that type of thing. And it was for more of like middle to high level like employees. So they all went. When they came back, they were talking about it and stuff, and we were all like sitting together at like a little area that we have. And one of them was like, yeah, like they mentioned like you can't really mention if you like someone's hair because it might be considered like offensive. And they looked at me like, Denasia, but like I feel like I always like your hair, I can't say anything anymore. Then I was like, what? First of all, what does God do with me? Second of all, what a crazy thing to say out loud. And I was just
Right,
like, well, I think maybe you need to go back to the drawing board of what they talked about. And
right,
I left it at
right.
that. I was like, there's no point in me going back and forth with them. But
Mm-mm.
also, it was like, I didn't know if it was trying to get a rise out of me or what the implication was, but it was just a very, like, it was a microaggression that was meant to be like fast and humor to make it seem like it wasn't that bad. But I was like, I know what you're getting at because I'm the only Black girl in the room. So
Yeah,
who else would you comment on their hair changing?
right. And then sometimes the microaggressions seek to get you into a discussion that is not going to have a definitive outcome of victory for you.
Yeah.
So why would I even entertain the discussion when ultimately, if you can go to a microaggression class and not get a full understanding to come out and not have that discussion, then what is my discussion going to do? Right?
Right.
Change your mind.
It's not going to, your destination is a bit locked, and that person has to do their own learning. They have
Yeah.
to invest their own expansion around that subject matter versus getting into a dialogue with me that you may not get to a clear understanding about because you're already kind of blocked. The fact that you would come back and ask the question. Hmm.
Yeah, that was my thought process. I was like, you came back from microaggression training and microaggressed me like 5 minutes after. Like we learned nothing. So it's beyond me.
Yeah, that's I'm looking at some of your chapter titles, and I wanted to kind of get into that just to really like the girlies are going to love this book. I'm already knowing, but and you talked about a few of the chapters already, like Degrade and Deny, Don't Fan the Flame. But I did really love chapter 7, Work is Not Your Worth. I know some of the type A Black girlies. For me, like middle school, I need to get to high school. High school, I need to get to college. Internships, corporate job. I'm at my corporate job. This has been my whole personality for my entire life. I've been the school sister. Now I'm the corporate sister. How could you kind of give us a glimpse into that and what you've kind of learned? Because maybe you're on the same track from high school to college, and how do you do that? How do you? I'm learning definitely. You're one corporate. You're two corporate. Two different women for sure, girl and women, well, woman. But please give us any advice.
Well, I would say your work is not your worth is primarily based in a truth. And that truth is it goes, okay, this may be a round the way answer, but I'm going to take a stab at it around the fact how when we're sent out into the world with you've got to be twice as good to get half as far, get half as much.
Mm-hmm.
Our parents were really seeking to birth drive and desire in us, right? They successfully do it. We're at the top of the class, you know, you graduate from kindergarten and your grandmama, your first cousins, your second cousin, everybody show up in kindergarten. And it just keeps getting bigger and bigger as you grow and you go all the way to college, top of your class. Young Black women are graduating magna cum laude, 4.0 degrees across this nation. But what I started exploring was how that really is a deficit mentality. It's saying you're not enough from the moment you walk out. So the drive and desire takes over to the degree that you don't even understand that you keep pushing from a deficit. You're not pushing from fullness.
Yeah.
And start getting the fact that my work is not my work. Where am I full? And how do I make myself full so that as a Black woman, right, I start living in my professional space and my personal space as a sipping from the saucer sister. My cup is running over. And I'm not just sipping from the rim of the cup, I'm drinking from the saucer because I'm moving from a place of fullness now. Not my drive and my desire and my delight is rooted in the fullness of me. Not, I got to prove this. I got to, you know what I mean? Like a performance-based existence.
Yeah.
No, I am it. I am it because I'm purposed to be it.
Yeah.
I am it because there is no other it like me, it. And so I'm going to move from that truth of purpose, which makes me full, versus performance-based. I'm going to prove them wrong. No, I'm not. I'm going to be in my purpose in every space I'm in, and I'm going to be the fullness of that. And then I'm going to eradicate this deficiency perspective that is rooted in systemic trauma. Like we have to think about the fact that Black people, number one, North America is the only country that has criminalized education. And they criminalized it against Black people. We went to prison for knowing how to read. No other culture has had that experience in this country.
Yeah.
So there's something about the way things were shaped in this nation that there is a comfort of us being a labor force, not a comfort of us being a leadership force. So you have to take the leadership back in your own self and push forward with fullness, not from a space of deficiency. And that's what I mean when I say your work is not your worth. Your worth is your worth. And you get to do the work you do from a place of the fullness of your work.
And you mentioned like you have to be in your purpose. Like, how did you figure out what your purpose is? Because I think for a lot of type A Black girls, like we kind of fixate ourselves on like a career, what we feel like we should be doing. And we're like, okay, this is my life. Let me work and do this for the next 40, 50 years. Like, I think a lot of us don't even know exactly what our true calling is. Like, how did you find that in yourself? And do you have any tips?
Yeah, meditation, spirituality, affirmations. And I will say this to you, Denasia, People that know me know I say this. There will be a day your calling will come calling, and it will call you from your career. It's either embedded in your career and it's going to pull you higher in it, or it may be a slight pivot from your career, but your career serves it, right? So for me, serving pop culture icons, teaching how to build your own personal platform, sharing how to trust the gift that God has in you. I don't care if you're usher at 14 or you're outcast at 17. Betting on yourself, betting on your blaze is what I call it. Betting on the gift that's in you, right? I did that for institutions and individuals. And one day, the calling came knocking saying, Tashan, it's your turn.
It's your turn.
Stand on the stage. Move from behind the curtain. That's not something I was seeking.
Yeah.
Something that called me forward. So I always say, your calling will come calling.
Yeah.
Okay, that's really reassuring. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I feel like that in my head, you have to go find your calling, but it's nice to know that it'll call you.
Oh, it's going to call you, and it's already found you. Right? It's in.
Hey, that's all you had to tell us. Okay. I feel like the type of Black girlies are feeling very, very affirmed. Like just this whole episode is like, yeah, I'm gonna listen to this 5 more times. And so there's some instances when we have guests on, and I'm like, oh, I can't wait to listen to this back, and this is one of them. Yeah, because as I think we're almost at season 10. After the next time me and Denasia meet, we'll be recording season 10, and some of the episodes I'm like, that was good. I won't be listening back to that, but we said some good things for the girlies. But when we have guests on, I'm like, oh, I need to get a notepad, just like Dee said in the beginning, getting a notepad and running this thing. So thank you so much. This has been, it's not over, but I'm just saying how grateful we are for you to come on.
I'm so grateful. I mean, listen, even your brand now, right?
Yeah.
You all may be doing $1 million retreats, right?
That sounds beautiful.
It's already here.
Yeah.
It's just growing. It's going to
I receive
evolve.
it.
It's going to expand, right?
Yeah.
You have books. You may have products. It's already here.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Like if we started this in our room in college, like
chill down my spine. Because if you could talk to 18-year-old Denasia and Faith and tell us this, I'm telling you, which is honestly why we have this. That way, if someone else is listening and they're younger than us, they can hear these words. Because I think we definitely need to hear this when we were younger. It's good that we're getting it now, but it's like, especially when we were literally just so so anal and type A, like just to the point where it's like, girl, calm down. Like everything's gonna work out in due time. Trust the process. Trust God. Like it will work.
It will.
And the presence, the gift, like the God in you, it's always wanting your highest and your best. And when we get fixated on the finish line, right? The fixation on the finish line, we miss the fullness.
Yeah.
Miss the gift of what the incremental steps are supposed to give us. We miss it because we're fixated on the finish line.
Yeah.
And I think that's one thing I really did work on through my own spiritual journey, was that God wasn't just the author of my faith, but he was the finisher of my faith. And that God had a purpose and has a purpose that brings God glory. My existence is victory to God. So I can trust that it will do what it's meant to do. And I can be comfortable and I can rest. I can rest in the revelation that I will reach my purpose in this lifetime because I desire to. And I desire it from a place of fullness, not a place of performance, not perfunctory, not trying to prove, but knowing.
Wow, especially just to rest. I feel like that in itself is hard.
That rest part.
The resting part really gets to me. I'm not gonna lie, because every time I'm resting, I'm like, "Ooh, but I could be doing this instead." Like it's hard to truly like make yourself sit down and be like, "No, you need time to just sit."
Well, how can you dream if you don't sleep?
Ooh,
Ate you up with that one.
it ate me up real bad.
Like, how can you dream? Like,
Yeah.
We might have found the title of this episode. Oh my god!
Right? But if we're just doing, demonstrating, we're not resting. We're not having a sacred self or a sacred Sabbath, like your own self Sabbath. Then how can you dream if you don't sleep? And what do you dream? What's the next dream? What will you uncover in your dreams about what you're doing?
Wow.
Wow. Thank you so much, Dr. Macon. You don't understand. Like, I feel like this is coming at a perfect time. Like, the stars are aligning with these messages. I don't know if any of the Type A Black girlies need to hear this, but I feel like we all need to hear it.
Absolutely.
It grounds us, honestly.
Truly.
Thank you for the opportunity. You have a beautiful platform, and to be able to be present is a gift to me. It's affirming to me that I'm walking in my purpose, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
When I rest and I dream of, enhancing and strengthening and inspiring the next generation of women, this manifested. So I encourage you to rest so you can dream and wake up and get to do what I'm doing today with you, being on the podcast.
Yeah. Oh, wow. This is beautiful. As you've Mom, you can go and then I'll do mine.
Oh yeah, no, I was just gonna jump down to the future because I know you mentioned dreams. So I was just thinking of things that you kind of envision for the future. I want to know, like, from your personal perspective, where do you see the corporate world and how Black women fit into it kind of changing in the future?
I think what's possible is that Black women are going to go to work requiring less validation.
That would be beautiful.
Yeah, I would love that.
I think, well, what I've experienced, not just what I think, most other ethnicities go to work for a paycheck. We go to work to prove, right?
Yeah.
And I'm going to be the best. I'm going to prove it. And then we don't get rewarded, right? Because we're actually seeking a currency that they can't really give us, right?
Yeah.
And so my highest hope in the future is those who are called to be executives or work in these spaces, that they will go with a surety of what is possible for themselves, whether it's in that space or not, and do not go to be validated. It's just a job. That's what it is, right?
Yeah.
The other thing I hope is those who are called to entrepreneurship will also experience that you can be both. You can be a hybrid. You can be an entrepreneur and an executive, right? And that to carve out the space in yourself that allows you to be your full self, right? And to see things in ways, see the possibility in wherever you are. I often say, I used to teach a class around the power of the purse, and I was serving in a capacity where I was working with women with limited means. They were SNAP recipients, that EBT recipients. It's had different names over time.
Yeah.
But I remember speaking to a woman and she was like, "But what do I have?" I said, "You have an EBT card. If you got sugar and sweet potatoes, you can make sweet potato pies and sell them for $5. And you've got a business." So to see the possibility in wherever you are. And she began to bake cakes and stuff and made money and put her child through a private school.
Wow.
And this is a woman who didn't necessarily know what she had in her hand. But when we see the promise and we see possibility, and we're not just going into these spaces allowing the space to penalize us and to push us back and to make us small because we're trying to prove and we're doing all this performance based work, I think that's going to change how Black women exist in corporate America. I don't think corporate America is going to be completely erased. Um, that's not how this country is built. And fundamentally, I believe in conscious capitalism. I believe that you can be a conscious capitalist. You can go and do well and do good and make a lot of money. And I just think for me, the environment has become bigger than the essence of why we're there. And we are so stuck and caught on what the environment is rather than what we come into the environment to be and what it can really offer us, that we get stuck and we push against it and want it to be something that it can't be to us or for us.
Yeah.
So if you can't change a system that inherently was not made for us or built for us, or even we weren't even thought of when it was being made. Yeah.
At all.
But you can go into the system, soar while you're there, sip from the saucer while you're there, say what you got to say while you're there, take up space while you're there, and then keep opening yourself up to another dimension of fullness in a different expression.
Yeah. Wow.
Ooh, this is so good. You don't understand. Like, I'm already thinking of the clips we're gonna take from this.
Oh no, me too.
I'm like, oh, the girlies are gonna eat this up.
No,
I think we have time for 2 more questions.
Okay.
So moms, if you want to go next.
Absolutely. So what is the most important piece of advice you would give to your 22-year-old self to make it easier for you in your 20s and beyond? Because I'm currently reading The Defining Decade, and a lot of stuff you do in your 20s really determines the rest of your life, like your earning power, the whole nine. So what's let's say even three pieces of advice you'd give to your 22-year-old self?
Okay. So one of them would be include yourself, Tashan. I'm the first person to go to college, graduate from college in my family. You hear the term the black tax or whatever. I didn't see it as a tax. I saw it as it was critically important to get my family out of challenging socioeconomic experiences. I grew up in East St. Louis, Illinois, grew up in very humble beginnings. And the thing I would tell myself at 22 is that education is an entry point. It is not the equalizer.
Okay.
And when you understand that it's not the great equalizer, as we're told, then Tashan, include yourself in your revenue decisions instead of just thinking about all the people I wanted to help or I needed to help. It came at the sacrifice of my own inclusion. And so I would say early on, as you're planning out the things you hope for in your life, include yourself. Make yourself a priority. Like we want to help everybody. We want to help the girlies coming up. But also make sure that you're clear about what you hope for yourself, right? And I would tell her that at 22. I would also tell her, it's gonna be better than all right.
Ooh.
Sometimes that's all you need to hear.
That'll do it.
It's gonna be so much better than all right. And that and a door is nothing but a hole in the wall. Keep knocking till the door opens.
Wow.
Yep, that one's getting written down. Yep.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, we did an episode on what we wish our 18-year-old selves knew, and we also did a kind of a letter to our 28-year-old selves. And right now what we thought we knew at 18 and what we now know at 23 and 24.
Yeah.
We didn't know what we was talking about.
And travel. That's another
Oh,
I was
Oh,
to
yeah.
your move. You are free to move around the globe.
Yep.
And I did.
hmm
I started traveling far more. Um, I also, this is unearthing something for me as you all asking me these questions. I did a queendom tour when I started
Ooh.
including myself, right? I went through this period in my 30s, around 37. I was like, okay, Tashan, include yourself. And so I called it a queendom tour. And I moved from South Africa. I started taking trips all over the continent. I
Oh,
traveled
that's so cool.
all the way to North Africa, and I did it over a period of years, and ended up meeting my fiance in Morocco, Marrakesh, Morocco. And I say, when you move from a place of fullness as a Black woman, um, destiny is interruptive. It's not even disruptive. It'll just interrupt you being you,
Mm.
full, being joyous. And when I made the decision to include myself, my personal life became full. My professional life remained full. My service life is full. Um, and I wish I would have known that earlier.
Mm.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Wait, can you unpack meeting your fiance in Morocco? Because
Please.
that alone, we need to hear this. Like tell us everything.
Yeah.
Okay, so it was a girlfriend trip.
Yeah.
Girlfriend, her name is a really, really, really talented, beautiful woman named Nzinga Stewart. She's a director. She and I, girlfriends, Nzinga, Janine, and myself, we went on a girlfriend's trip. And we simply were going to experience, Morocco and have a good time. And so Nzinga had broken up with a gentleman, and we get to Morocco and we meet these two gentlemen that are like excursion. They're going to handle all of our excursions and everything. And this gentleman walks by, and when I see him, I say, "Oh my goodness, he's going to marry Nzinga." I saw it. Fast forward, she's married to him. His name is Mohsin El Gersh, and I'm engaged to his twin brother. Like, this is crazy. I know.
Oh, what?
I know.
Oh my God, that's beautiful.
This is
But
like a movie.
it's
Yes.
crazy. But what I will say is that as we were women, Janine and Zinga and myself, we were taking up space. We were moving around the country. We were deciding to be full. We were deciding, at the time, Nzinga was really trying to push into directing at a higher level, and the whole Black female director thing hadn't really cracked, but she was moving
Mhm.
from a place of fullness, having a full life. And we had
Mhm.
made that decision. It wasn't, I had a breakup from a very long-term relationship, and but I just kept deciding I was full. And
Mm.
I
Mm.
kept moving from a place of fullness, not a place of deficiency. And lo and behold, it just happened, and it didn't disrupt anything. It was just interrupted. We were about the business of being ourselves and being in our life and being fully present, and the presents just start coming,
Mm.
Oh my
personally,
gosh.
socially.
Oh my God. Listen, I'm going to Nairobi in a month. I'm about to text the girls chat right now. Hey y'all, let's go on a tour.
Yes, and be open to the
Yeah.
fullness, and as I traveled, I just met different people, and when you travel, and we don't, Black women, sometimes we're in such hard spaces. We spend so much of our time at work, right? And we're in such critical places that we forget the softness of a compliment,
Mm,
Mm.
because we don't hear them that often.
mm.
So when you're traveling around the world and someone gives you a compliment, whether it's a woman or a man, feel that.
Yeah.
Let that rest on you a little bit.
Mm.
And because here in our country, we're often in this crucible all the time, right? And so, and we just go, go, go. We're in this sometimes tense and toxic spaces in a crucible of pressure all the time.
Mm.
We're type A, we fixated on the finish line, and the whole time, the beauty of a full life is moving and you're missing it.
Mm. Yeah.
It's
Oh,
worth the fun. It's worth the fun. Feel it. It's worth the fun. Come in hot. It's worth the fun.
oh, wow. This has been I don't even got no more questions. This
I
has been
have one more.
the
You know,
best
I
note
know.
to end on.
Yeah, this has been a great start to my Saturday morning because it was an early one. I was like, "Ooh, ooh," and I thought it started at 8 instead of 9. The whole thing with alarms, but being a woman that is well traveled, agency that's been beautiful and bringing in so many brands and things like that, and just being. I hate this word, but this is how I can describe you from what I know, a high value woman. What does your future husband do to make you feel like I can rest? I can turn my brain off. I can just be not Dr. Macon, just Tashan.
I will tell you without a doubt because I knew it. You know, when you hear people say you'll know when you know, and you're like, girl, yeah, right. And you really don't believe it, but it's
Yeah.
the truth. When you live it, it's the truth. And what it is, he brings ease.
Mm,
Mm.
Life isn't easy, but there's an ease to being with him.
yeah.
His He seeks to make my life lighter. It's what lifts him up. It's what he loves. He loves to make my life lighter. And in return, because he's pouring that, I also want to offer that.
Mm,
Mm.
And so we forget about working because, you know, he's an entrepreneur, does well for himself. We forget about it. We laugh, you know.
Mm.
yeah.
Um, we spend time together just talking and laughing and living and I do think when I started getting intentional about the inclusion of myself, it was important for me to seek to show up in my fullness for myself first.
Mm.
Yeah.
And I knew that when it was time, if it was time, I would attract that which would want to continue to do that. I love a quote. I learned it years ago and I fell in love with it by Eartha Kitt. And Eartha Kitt said, compromise for what? I love being me. I want
Mm.
somebody gonna love me being me as much as I love being me.
Mm, yeah.
Shout out
Yeah.
Eartha. She don't miss.
She don't
Eartha does not miss. Okay.
Wow.
Oh
Wow.
my gosh. I
That
love this.
I'm enjoying this. This is a great start to the month. It feels like a brunch, but we're not even eating. But you are.
Listen,
Compliment.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
ironically, today is oh my gosh, I just saw a TikTok about this. I'm on astrology TikTok, so y'all know it's yeah, but today is apparently May 18th is the most powerful day to manifest a new life. So I was actually going to do my manifestation journal today, but this honestly did it for me. Like, this is it. So thank you so much. This feels like a very divine timing
Thank you so
podcast
much.
episode.
Yeah.
Thank you so much again for coming on, Dr. Macon. We're going to plug all of your everything. Like, I know you have a podcast, also the title podcast, as well as a book. So we're going to plug everything and make sure our girlies know about you. And thank you so much again for coming on. This was amazing.
Thank you so much for having me. And this is more than a moment. This is a movement. Let's
Yeah.
stay in touch.
For sure.
Yeah.
About the podcast. We can do this online, offline, all the time.
I love it.
Thank you so much for
Thank you
having me.
so much.
Of
Bye,
course.
guys. We'll see you guys
Bye
next
bye.
week or
Next season.
this week. Or
Yeah.
Bye, girlies. Love the girls.
Bye.